Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today will be part 2 of our interview with Jaime Paul Lamb.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Today on the Working Tools Podcast, we have 3/4 of our usual group of hosts. We have Brother Craig Graham from Kalamalka Lodge number 160 in Vernon, British Columbia. David Colbeth from King Solomon number 60 in Auburn, Washington. I'm Matt Appel from Mill Creek number 243 up in lovely Mountain Lake Terrace, Washington. And we are honored to have with us again Worshipful Brother Jaime Paul Lamb, past master of Ascension Lodge number 89 in Phoenix, Arizona, and noted Masonic author, if I forget to put that on there. So Jaime, thank you very much for coming back to the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me back. It was a pleasure. I had to come back for more.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the last episode, David looked like he was going to ask a question, and I told him to shut up and save it for later. So here we are with his opportunity to go forth. So David,
the cliffhanger here. So we were talking kind of at the end of the last episode. Craig had asked a question of your experience. Was this a dining club, or was this something much more Freemasonry? The idea of Freemasonry, and I still struggle with that a little bit too. Where I've seen, I'm not into the coffee clutch and the charities necessarily either. Although that can be a part of what I kind of have called the fulcrum lodge, where there's things that I know we're not a franchise, we're not McDonald's, but there's certain things I think everybody should experience in a lodge, a Freemason's lodge. So I appreciate the idea of the restorative observance and those things that you're talking about. But I've also seen some stuff, watched and participated that I think, how is that even really related to Freemasonry or the ideas? But I get the idea, the concept that there's more to life and more to anything. And Freemasonry is one avenue, like you related esotericism to Freemasonry, that they're basically the same ideal, yellow banana. And so how do you, in the blue room, we were talking about, I was trying to formulate a good question, and I'm losing the good question here, but how do we determine the difference between Freemasonry and the kind of the ideals of it versus something that's kind of way out there and maybe isn't? I guess, where are the boundaries, if there are any?
So, yeah, I think that, I think we should talk about culture first, right? So we have jurisdictions. I'm not sure exactly how it is in Canada, but we have jurisdictions where we have Grand Lodges. Grand Lodges kind of are over that jurisdiction of lodges. And those lodges, there's standardization. We have to do the work a certain way, or else we get our charter pulled. I mean, you have to. There's work that we must do in that jurisdiction to maintain regularity. To put it the simplest way I can. So, and everybody knows that. So you do the work of your jurisdiction, but culturally, you can express that different ways. Like we were talking about last time, my lodge likes to wear tuxedos and candles and light the candles and burn incense and make it, have music and things and make it this solemn event, that really invites all the senses to participate. And we like good food, We like to go downstairs and have wine and good food and everything. So there's that. But then there's also, here in Arizona, you have cowboy lodges where it's like they gotta literally like get off the ranch or something, and they could even be in coveralls for all I know, or a cowboy hat for the master or whatever. I've seen that plenty of times in lodges, the black cowboy hat the master's wearing, bolo ties instead of jewels. I've seen stuff like that, and that's fine. I mean, as long as you're doing Arizona Grand Lodge work and you have your charter and you're regular, then who am I to say culturally what And yeah, but sometimes when you talk about what do they call it? Observance lodges, or when you talk about TO, or you talk about MRF lodges, restorative lodges, they tend to get looked at askance because they're like highfalutin kind of elitist, and that's not the case. It's just a cultural thing. I like serious Freemasonry. I like it to be. I like there to be something almost kind of a little macabre about it. I like there to be something kind of, just mystical about it. I like it to be serious. I like the work to be solemn and moving and even frightening at times. I think the candidate, like in the third degree, you should feel your heart should be pounding. I think that that makes a more moving experience. I think when you put initiates through the 3 degrees with care and attention to detail, you could really change a person. And that to me is what's important. We're an initiatic order, and so holding on to that is super important. And then so that's kind of one aspect, at least what I'm picking up from you, right? But then the other one is Freemasonry as a system of self-development, character development, and even up to what you might call henosis or theosis, union with your great architect of the universe, whoever, your God, right? I think we have a complete and intact kind of plan for that in our work without having to go anywhere else. I think if you look, Freemasonry has all the component parts in that metaphysical ladder that leads all the way up to the house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. And a lot of it has to do with, and I'll bring this up because we were talking about this before the last time we met, about the essential and accidental qualities of things. So I'm going to preface this by saying Aristotle brings up this nice idea. It's a clean way to think about things. It's what are the essential qualities of a thing and what are the accidental qualities of a thing. So you could look at a fork, let's say, and what must a fork do? A fork must have a handle. It must have a certain number of tines, and it must be able to deliver food to your mouth. These are essential qualities of a fork. It's not a fork if you're missing any of those 3 things. So it must be at least those essential qualities. Now, accidentally, it could be wood, it could be white plastic, black plastic, metal, stainless steel. It could be 2 tines, like for barbecuing. It could be 3 tines, 4 tines, a dessert fork, whatever. There's a lot of things it can be accidentally, but it doesn't need to be any of those things. So when we apply that to Freemasonry, and I encourage everybody to do this. I mean, if you're asking yourself, what is Freemasonry? And I would say a lot of Freemasons apparently have never asked themselves that. What is Freemasonry? You can say the tired old sort of Prestonism, I think it was Preston who wrote it, when he said, Freemasonry is a beautiful system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols, if I got that right, which is great. And I've regurgitated that plenty of times. But when I think about it myself, I'm like, well, what is it if I apply this kind of Aristotelian approach to it? I've whittled it down personally, and I feel pretty comfortable with this, that Freemasonry is essentially the kind of art of metaphysical temple building. And here's why I say this. Because we're not operative stonemasons. We're speculative Freemasons. Speculative Freemasons don't raise and dress and set worked stone in accordance with an architect's plans, like that's operative masons do that. What we do is apply the working tools metaphysically to make ourselves ready for that house not made as living stones in that house not made with hands. And there's a hermetic, I say hermetic, but there's a, let's say a sort of fractal expanse between here and there, because when we work on memory, I know you know this. We go, where were you placed after you were in the northeast corner on the first step of Mason? Then I was conducted to the east, and then I was conducted back to the senior warden. Then I was in the south, and we circumambulated all this stuff. And you have to remember all that stuff in your catechism, right? Meanwhile, you're making this directionality, this orientation, orient the east, orientation, you're orienting yourself and you're establishing this directionality in your mind's eye, you know, and that's your mnemonic temple. You're literally building like a memory temple, you know. That's so when you're doing that, you're participating in something that all Masons are participating in. And when all Masons have this mnemonic temple, they tend to resonate with each other. And the next level is an egregorical temple, which is the collective projection of all of these Freemasons who have built their personal mnemonic temples into this almost like a holographic image of a temple. You know, like the egregorical temple. There's the intellectual temple, the moral and ethical temple. There's the, you know, all the way up to the house not made with hands, eternal in heavens. This expanse of the temple archetype. And archetype's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but it means something. It means the archetype itself is that noetic, non-space-time kind of immaterial idea or form that is outside of the cosmos, whereas the archetypal image are the things that we find in the world, these particulars we find in the world. The archetype is general, things in the world are particular, but they're related, at least in Platonism. So
yeah. Sorry, Jamie, I hate to interrupt you, but I was just gonna, you said the word that I was waiting for there, the Platonic form.
Yeah.
Which to me is almost an odd way of trying to describe a fourth dimensional space. At least that's what I read about it. But that's the archetype is what is also thought of as the Platonic form, isn't it?
Yeah.
That which is the perfect form of the thing.
Yeah. It's like our fork that we were just talking about. There's the archetypal fork, which you will never find here in the world of particulars. You know, that archetypal fork does not have a one-for-one partner here. It has inferior shadows down here. These archetypal images, these actual forks, these particulars are platonically, you might say, inferior shadows of the true fork, capital T, the formal idealistic fork that really is forkness itself, you know.
So then when we're laboring as speculative Masons and we're shaping our allegorical stones ourselves to fit as living stones into that house not made with hands, so we're actually contributing to the archetype rather than adhering to it, or are we doing both at the same time?
Well, I think that gets into territory, kind of theological territory. So if you're and I've been knee deep in this lately too, regarding Macrobius, a late antique Neoplatonist, talks about the philosophical death, which is the death that happens before you don't need to physically die. It's the philosopher's death, and the philosopher is able to connect with the noetic realm without tasting death, right? So I think in Freemasonry, and I kind of drew up a tall order at the beginning of this when I said Freemasonry is a complete system from the ground, from the most base terrestrial physical realm to the most rarefied noetic realm where the forms are, and our system kind of spans that, right? Now, whether you have to die, like, what is it? I wish I remembered this. It's like great work, good and faithful servant, as the Lord welcomes them into the. I wish I could remember. It's such a beautiful passage too. I have to look it up, but yeah. So I think I'm not. That's above my grade right now. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that looks or what that feels like. But it seems like the pieces are there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
That'd be nice. I mean, that'd be nice to, and I could tell you the philosophical death sounds better than physical death.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially if there's a do-over involved, like
Right.
Can I come back and correct a few things I might have messed up the first time around? But
Yeah.
then we're getting into a whole other realm at that point.
Right.
But that's interesting. I mean, it's something that I've thought of, because what I've always wondered, Jamie, when we take a look at Freemasonry as an evolutionary topic, going from lodges of highly trained, disciplined craftsmen to ending up in this mystery school realm that we're kind of in now. I wonder where did the history of one intersect with the other? Like, I mean, I know that learned men started to join lodges as the craft system was I don't want to say becoming obsolete, but sort of breaking down, because all of a sudden we were firing bricks and cement and things like that. And now we didn't need carved, hewn, quarried stones anymore. So how does the Western esoteric tradition find itself into Freemasonry and bring us to where we are now?
Sure. So there's a couple of sequences in there that I like. In what we consider the UK now, there used to be in the Middle Ages sometime, probably through the Renaissance, I'm sure, and maybe even into the Elizabethan era, there were passion plays, which were called mysteries, and the guilds, the various trades, were assigned a certain passion play, a sequence from scripture to put on in these mystery plays, and the carpenters would have like the building of the ark, the bakers would have the feeding of the 5,000, let's say, and masons, presumably, though I haven't read this anywhere, masons would probably have the building of King Solomon's temple, right? So I'd put money on that being because there were Masonic guilds then, operative Masonic guilds, and they were putting on mystery plays. I would say that almost certainly the whole King Solomon's Temple thing, and yes, I know about Noahite masonry and stuff, but I don't know, it just stands to reason that could be part of our mysteries. So there's that little piece, plus there's a little later, right after the Rosicrucian furor, which was 1614 through 19, I think, when the two manifestos and an allegory, a chemical wedding, were anonymously distributed in, I think, all of them in Germany, maybe one of them in France somewhere, but those started something called the furor, the Rosicrucian furor, and really, there were people like in Germany, like Michael Meyer. There was Robert Flood in England, and these people were, took on this Rosicrucian sort of persona, right? Even though I think everybody knows that it was just what Andrei called a Valentin Andrei. He was the kind of guy behind that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he in the Tübingen circle, but he called it a ludibrium, a joke, basically. He was like, we were just goofing around, because he didn't want to get in trouble, because at that time, if you were writing stuff like that, you could get killed. And so he kind of wrote it off as a joke, but people were taking it seriously. And then all of a sudden, it was almost like a if you build it, they will come sort of situation. So they created this Rosicrucian society that was peopled by no one. And then because they created the society, people took on that persona, and actually then all of a sudden you get Rosicrucian groups like Masonic Rosicrucian groups in 1730 and 1760. The Orden des Gold und Rosenkreutzer. Samuel Hermann Fichtold and Samuel, I forget the guy's name, but Masonic Rosicrucianism. So, and Thomas de Quincey called everybody's favorite guy, Elias Ashmole, called him a zealous Rosicrucian. So around that time, so you're talking 1646, I think was when Ashmole was raised. So if I had to wager, I would put money on the Rosicrucian influence being a big deal in terms of the new direction in craft masonry.
Okay. Yeah, that starts to make sense. I know people like to, you want to talk about going down rabbit holes. People like to throw the Illuminati in there as well, but that's to me, there's nothing to the Illuminati as far as I'm concerned. It was Adam Weishaupt trying to just get laid on a Saturday night, to be really crass.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep this PG rated, but you know where I'm going with.
Sure. Well, I think the whole thing with the Bavarian Illuminati is that it was basically a fart in the wind. I mean, it was around for like 7-8 years or something like that, and it's a dead issue, right? I don't think anybody's doing that. Well, maybe people are doing that work, but I know Joseph Wages would probably know. Joseph Wages, he's done a lot of research on that. So,
okay.
And I, for one, welcome our Illuminati masters. But the there was a serious question after that. So you talked about Rosicrucianism as an organization influencing Masonry, but both Masonic Rosicrucianism and, for lack of a better term, non-Masonic Rosicrucianism still exists today.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically for Masonic Rosicrucianism, do you see that as an extension of a natural extension of what we do, or is it a unnecessary vestigial limb? Or
yeah, I would say, it's unnecessary. It's you can have Freemasonry without you can have the Freemasonry that we have today without having to consider Rosicrucianism as a supplement. There's no, however, if you like Masonic Rosicrucianism, for example, like in the States, we have Societas Rosicruciana and Civitatibus Foederatis, and that is SRICF, and that is a group whose aims and ordinances clearly say to study the philosophies of the world and the doctrines of Hermes Trismegistus and the Holy Kabbalah. It says in there that that's on the trestle board. So if you're not doing that, you're not doing the SRIA, SRIS, SRICF. You're not doing the Rosicrucian work if you're not busying yourself in those three. So that includes alchemy, that includes astrology, because these are Hermetic arts, and we're talking about the doctrines of Hermes Trismegistus. That's technical Hermetica. So that's definitely on deck. So consequently, you find all sorts of alchemical and astrological allusions in the symbolism of Masonic Rosicrucianism. And they say Masonic Rosicrucianism only because you have to be a Trinitarian Christian Master Mason. Now, they might have changed this recently to just Christian Master Mason, but when I joined like 10 years ago, you had to be a Trinitarian Christian Master Mason, if I'm not mistaken. But it's an invitational. So, and it's considered bad taste to ask anybody about it. But so you just have to, like, if you're interested in that sort of thing, just you got to kind of, I don't know, like position yourself to get an invitation.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's like my favorite thing I do all year is November in Louisville, Kentucky at the Brown Hotel. Like 500 or 600 Masonic Rosicrucians convene at this really old hotel in downtown Louisville, and it's just a blast. I mean, it's the only place I've ever been where you can walk up to anybody and start talking about horary astrology, or about making spagyric tinctures, through Paracelsian, the separation of the salt, sulfur, and mercury. And everybody kind of, oh yeah, I know. I just, I've been doing that last weekend or whatever. So that's pretty cool. But
and something like that in my life. Paracelsus or Paracelsus, however you want to say it, bit of a hero of mine. So anybody that ever writes a book, and the first sentence is, "I am different. Let that not offend you," is something of a hero of mine. So yeah,
for sure,
I enjoy this stuff. And then I had a question in my head, and I kind of disappeared for a sec there.
Yeah,
we've been taking a lot in so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating stuff. I mean, you could tell I'm still like excited about it. I've been talking about this stuff for years, and it never gets old. I mean, it's so, and it's always unfolding more and more. Like my recent kind of obsession has been the subtle body, the doctrine of like the astral body, and how the soul. This is kind of Platonic stuff. How the soul comes down through the Ogdoad, the sphere of the fixed stars in the zodiac, what we call the firmament. The soul comes through the firmament. It's guided by its daimon, its guardian daimon, an entity that was assigned to it that represents its fate or its destiny. In Greek, it's the Hymarmene. And at each cosmic sphere, planetary sphere, because it's that Ptolemaic concentrically enveloped spheres, 7 of them. So at each sphere, the soul, it's the rational soul, which is impervious to taking impressions. It's incorruptible. So they had to come up with a body, sort of a vehicle. They call it the Ohima Pneuma, which means the pneumatic chariot. And they had to cover the body with this irrational soul, the vehicle. So it would take on the accretions at each planetary sphere, depending on the condition of that planet in the zodiac. If it was in good shape, you got good significations. If it was in neutral shape, neutral. Bad shape, awful significations. So, and times that by 7 as the rational soul in its astral vehicle, its subtle body, comes down through the spheres, and that's its personality. So that's where you get like 7 vices, 7 virtues. That's where you get the passions. They're imprinted on your pneumatic body, which is the very same substance that links the soma, the body, to the rational soul. It's that pneumatic. So you've got the soul, which is your psyche. Then you've got the pneuma, which is the binding agent, and then you have the body, which is the soma. So going back to Paracelsus, you have the salt, sulfur, and mercury right there. The salt is the body. The soul is the soul is the sulfur, and the pneuma is the mercury, the universal solvent that is sort of the binding agent. It's just really cool stuff.
No, and with that, I think I will interject myself in my rude way yet again. So, Jaime, thank you very much for coming on the show. We appreciate your I don't know what the word is.
My active imagination.
Well, I was going to go more for deep insight, but
okay.
your insight into these connections and this aspects of masonry that frankly a lot of Masons don't think about. I was going to say enough, but at all. So hey, yeah, thank you for being here, sir. On behalf of David and Craig and myself, we thank you all for listening to the Working Tools podcast. Goodbye.